Hi there, Nancy. It's Andrew once again. Let's get stuck straight in and read through your work. So, there are different views. Here I would say regarding. There are different views regarding adaptation to technology and its effects on our cognitive abilities. In my opinion, I believe that technology should be adapted to meet human needs. We could then use a semicolon here and say, I would also argue that it fortifies our intellectual abilities, or intellectual skills, because you have used abilities here. That's good. Intellectual skills. Or you could just say it fortifies our intellect. It is believed that technology is developed only to meet the requirements of the modern world. Great sentence. People frequently invent new devices, update software, and expand networks to afford the world a more comfortable place to live. I would say to create a more comfortable world in which to live. For example, mobile phones increase the accessibility of people, or a mobile phone massively increases a person's accessibility, affording them the chance to browse the internet. Surf is a little bit informal. Affording them the chance to browse the internet and socialize on the move. Moreover, software engineers around the globe endeavor to develop advanced technologies to solve some of the world's greatest problems, such as pollution and energy depletion. Don't forget our explanatory sentence at the end. Therefore, we could say here, therefore, people are currently required to constantly adapt to changing technological solutions and platforms. A further debate surrounding technology is whether it positively or negatively affects our, I wouldn't say brain abilities, it doesn't quite collocate. I would say negatively affects our intellectual capacity. Technological development, in my opinion, could fortify our intellectual skills due to, so we could remove this full stop here, and say technological development, in my opinion, could fortify our intellectual skills due to its uses in a variety of fields. Let's say such as research and education, because knowledge is not a field. Research is a field, education is a field, but knowledge is just a thing. Take, for example, the use of the internet by students. Take, for example, the use of the internet by students in the classroom, we could say here, increased connectivity makes it easier to conduct detailed research, as well as piquing students' interest in the subject area. This, consequently, plays an important role in enhancing their cognitive abilities. So this consequently plays an important role in enhancing their cognitive abilities, and clearly demonstrates the idea that technology can have a positive effect on our brain, or brains, either's good. In conclusion, I believe that technology, which should be adapted to the needs of people, could act as a precursor to improving intellectual skills, I would say. But otherwise, great. Your writing's very high level. I thoroughly enjoy reading your work. So here's your task 1. And as we know, we need to refer to the graph as accurately as possible, be specific, be objective, be precise. But here, there's one thing that the IELTS examiner would probably not even mention this, but we're talking about visits from a certain country to a city. And in that graph, it doesn't say anything about the nationalities of those people. And although it's kind of safe to assume, it's just not absolute, is it? It isn't confirmed by the graph whether they are Canadian or Mexican. So we should refer to essentially the number of visits from the country and to another country. That's the only information we know. Here we're referring to the nationalization, the place that people we're referring to people's national identity, but we don't know it. Now, that's me being pedantic, really, really pedantic, but I usually point this out if someone does this. So we could say the bar chart shows data about the predicted number of visits to 4 different cities from Canada, Mexico, and the USA. Because also America and the Americas and Americans can get quite confusing, because not everybody considers people from the USA to be Americans. Many countries consider anyone from either of the Americas, the American continents, North or South America, to be Americans. So let's say to 4 different cities from Canada, Mexico, and the United States of America in 2018. Paris is expected to receive the most visitors from the USA, with 100,000 visits in 2018. It's not per year, it's in one specific year. Followed by London with 80,000, then Madrid and Istanbul with 70,000 and 60,000 respectively. We don't need these brackets. And also, whereas needs to be used either after a comma, or if it's used to start a sentence, it means that it's a comparison with what follows later. So here, if this was used correctly, it would say, whereas Canadians' preferred destination is, essentially the next subordinate clause would automatically be on the other hand. Whereas this, on the other hand, this. So you could say all of this and then say, whereas Canadians do this, and then this is the on the other hand. But the on the other hand is the final subordinate clause. So whereas X, comma, Y, or X, comma, whereas Y. Either's fine, but that should be a comma, or there should be a subordinate clause here. Also, we need to remain consistent with how we're referring to it. Because we've given here all of the cities that people will visit from America. But then here we've only given 2 for Canada. Oh no, but we carried on here. So we need to make sure that our information is grouped together more logically, because you talked about Canada's visits here, but then continue to talk about them in the next paragraph. So I would maybe go with, if you were going to use one paragraph to talk about the most preferred destinations of each country, that would be good. That would be all grouped together. Or if you were to use a paragraph to talk about all of the places that the USA was going to visit, or all of Canada. But we need to group together our information a little bit more logically in this one. So Madrid will be the least visited city by Canadians or people from Canada, with around 30,000 projected visits. Remember, this is projected or expected, it's not certain. However, it is expected to be the most popular destination for people from Mexico, with just over 60,000 visits in 2018. A year still means every year, and it's only talking about 1 year. London and Istanbul are expected to be the least visited city by tourists from Mexico, each with 20,000 visits. Overall, people from America, represent the highest number of expected visits, followed by Canada, then Mexico. While Paris is expected or is projected to be the most visited city in 2018, it is also expected that London and Istanbul will receive the lowest number of visitors. All in all, good. Also, you more than anybody else have actually remembered to include the words projected and expected, but not all the way through. So information grouping and using projected and expected when we are referring to uncertain predictions in the future. But all in all, for both of these, you are definitely a shoo-in for a 7 or above. We just need to, I think what you need to make sure you do when you get into the exam is really take your time. Think very carefully about what you want to say, because you have a very high standard of English, and rushing will cost you. So have some faith in yourself, believe in your abilities, and aim to score an 8. You should be thinking about how to achieve a level 8, and then if you do get nervous and you do mess up a little bit, at least then you'll score a 7. I'll send you a link along with these essays to the IELTS scoring system. I'm sure you've already seen it, but it helps to have a good read just to know what your writing should look like. But I'll send these over to you now, Nancy. Have a wonderful evening or morning or whatever it is where you are. I'll speak to you again tomorrow.